How many chickens did you lose?
Well, in terms of loss, I think maybe between 900 and 1,000.
You see.
Yeah.
You see. That's not easy.
No.
If it was me, I would have woken up in the hospital. Same thing that happened. What you went through is the same thing that happened to Rua Organic Farm.
Okay, that's interesting.
She lost a lot of money.
Yes.
Doing farming. What was the mistake that you think you made?
And the number one mistake, if we're going to call them that, or failure, was not getting enough information about what I was getting into. I didn't get the education that I needed. I started off too big. 10,000 chickens
10,000
for a nurse.
For a nurse.
Yes, for a nurse who has no clue about farming, who had no clue about how to raise chickens. I'd never raised a chicken in my life. So how on earth did I think I was going to be successful?
10,000.
Raising 10,000
Was
chickens.
it not the excitement, coming back from the diaspora and wanting to do something here in Africa?
Absolutely. And the opportunities that are presented to us as diasporans are massive. And we can see the benefit of all of them. So you try to jump onto everything at once. But a lesson for me is that do one thing, perfect the art before you move on to the next stream of income. I know we always talk about multiple streams of income. And yes, you do need them. But perfect one thing first, especially for people who are inexperienced in business.
I visited one of the top goat breeders we have in Zimbabwe. This is me taking a tour around the farm. It's deep in the rural areas of Bulawayo. I climbed a mountain close to the farm, and on my way back, I had a scuffle with the dogs.
This is me opening this gate, and I'm trying to get in. I'm getting back in the house, but the dog is there barking at me. And I'm taking a walk around the farm, and the dogs love me already. Although I was a bit scared, especially when that one started barking over there. This is the entrance to the house. This is Bulembe farm, and here they keep goats. Haha, look at this. I don't want to lie to you. So here at Bulembe farm, they're doing breeding. And if you are looking at this is gold. I would say it's gold. And I think there's a mixture of Boer goats and Kalahari red, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know much, but I am learning. I don't lie to you, people who live on this farm, they're living a good life. The reason why I'm saying that, if you have to look around, look at this. This is the farm, and they're surrounded by nature. One of the best things that you can experience as a human being is being surrounded by nature. Those who grow up around nature, they underestimate it, but once you go out there and come back, you start to appreciate what nature can provide. So I'm taking a tour around the farm. So they told me that they are preparing land for horticulture. That's where we are going. I want to see how they are doing it. I want to see the progress and everything. So this is farm life. This is what other people want. They are preparing for horticulture. This is like doing horticulture on a different level, on a large scale. All this land is for horticulture. I'm sure most of us have experienced something like this in the rural areas. You can hear these cow bells. This has got that rural feeling, rural aspect. And most of the people that are going to watch this, who are in the diaspora or anywhere in Africa, they can relate to these bells. Someone can hear a certain bell of a cow and say, aha, that's the sound of my cow. those who have done this before, those who have had cattle before in the rural areas, you can hear your cattle from a long distance. I mean, look at this. Look at this. So far, I've counted more than 50 cattle. This is amazing stuff. Amazing. I mean, on your farm having cattle like this, hear the sound of the bells. And then we have that guy, my guy, who is heading the whole herd by himself. It's amazing. It's amazing. We have done this before. In the rural areas, you could look at a young boy who is 15 years and heading a herd of cattle like this. Yes. Look at this. Look at this. So this one it's a conversation. It's different from
in conversation with Kelvin period.
Yes. I mean, it's way different from all the videos that I've made so far.
Yeah.
This one I'm much more relaxed.
Good. You always look relaxed anyway with all your...
Trust me, inside I won't be relaxed.
Seriously.
I've been thinking about a lot of things. How
Yes.
can I make this video a better video than the last one? Because that's how I do my videos.
Yes.
I always make sure that the next video has to be better than the last video.
The last one, yes.
So I'm always improving. And I'm happy to be meeting people like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you farmers, you have a different way of doing things.
Okay.
I feel like for you to be a big farmer, you have to have what is called integrity. So how do you see farming for you? Like, is it hard?
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. But it's not impossible. It's not insurmountable. It's expensive. That I would say that's the painful part.
With the excitement of going to the diaspora when you were young, did it ever cross your mind that you would one day come back in Zimbabwe and be a farmer?
Not even. Never ever. Actually, I was going to come back as a very successful lawyer. I was going to come back and set up my own legal practice. Yes.
But
that was my dream when I first left
God had other plans.
Zimbabwe. Yes. Age 19.
Age 19.
Yes.
Are you...
That was my dream.
Are you disappointed with the outcome?
Not even. I am not disappointed with the outcome. I'm very happy.
So do you think
with
that
the outcome? I'm happy with the route that I finally took, and it wasn't always planned. It wasn't always planned, but it turned out well. Now, if I tell you even about my nursing, career, somebody advised me. They basically said, look, don't be silly. You can't just come to the UK, study law, and off you go. And practice. It's not as straightforward as that. Number one, the university fees were going to be completely unaffordable. Yeah. So I went into nursing. Again, I was advised, go into mental health nursing. And, I was determined. And I'm thinking, well, if this is a means to an end, so be it. I'm going to do this. I get into mental health nursing and I absolutely love it. It's like it was meant to be. I just loved it. And in my second year, people, it's called attachment here, but over there we call it placement. I was on a placement for the elderly. And that's where I really found myself in nursing, working with older people. And since then, I just had this very, I had passion for working with older people, especially in mental health. And I went on to specialize in dementia care. And my last job in nursing was working with families where there's a person with dementia. And that was the most satisfying job I've ever had in my entire life. And of course, farming is now. But the way I feel now about farming is how I felt in those 10 years or so when I was working as an Ardmore nurse.
Do you miss it?
I do miss it.
I want to talk about how different Africa is from other places out there. The way we look at older people in Zimbabwe, in Africa, is way different from the way older people are treated out there.
In Africa,
Yes.
we respect the elderly.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Yes. I've always thought that,
Yeah.
that elderly people hold a place
Thank you.
of respect
Yes.
within the society,
Yes.
within their social, circle.
Yes.
They are seen as a symbol of wisdom,
Yes.
and that's the experience that I have personally, that of love,
Yes.
respect for the older
Yes.
person.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes in the UK where I worked, as a nurse, I used to feel frustrated sometimes because I felt that being old, you were seen as a nuisance, as a burden to society, and it was described as burden of care, that sort of thing, the financial burden of looking after the elderly. So, and even the jokes, there's so many jokes about old people being forgetful, all kinds of names used to describe, the elderly, and that used to frustrate me, a little bit. And even something as simple as calling an elderly person by their first name, which was very alien to me as a young nurse, because I took that to be a sign of the utmost disrespect.
Yes.
And I would never ever
Being an
dream
African.
of that. Yes, but we have to adapt. We have to assimilate sometimes into, the society that we find ourselves in, that we choose to live and work in. So that has always been my experience, one of absolutely positive aging.
Thank you.
And also my experience that, here when people are old, it's okay. They can spend the whole day just doing nothing. In inverted commas. And that's fine.
Yes, yes.
They've done their bit.
Yes,
and
they've
that's
done.
Okay.
And
that's okay.
When I'm happy that when you are looking at older people, you see that positive side of it.
Yes.
But it seems like things are changing in Africa.
Probably.
We no longer have that ubuntu.
Probably.
We no longer have that respect. When you were growing up, if you meet an elder, you greet them.
Yes.
Some went to an extent of kneeling.
Yes.
If you are on the bicycle, if you come across an elderly, you get down,
yes.
you greet them,
yes.
and then carry along.
Yes.
Things are changing in Africa.
Things are changing, I can imagine. And yes, I can believe it.
Yes.
And I can believe it. But also, I find that we are seeing, again, this is my own personal experience.
Exactly.
I'm seeing less and less older people generally in public. I mean, like really, really old people. We are the old people now. When I first came back from home and people would say, Masalu, Koko, and I'm like, I'll be looking around to see who they were addressing.
Yes.
And they're referring to me.
Why is this so? Why is it so that we are seeing less?
Yes. I think life expectancy has a lot to do with it. Like coming from Europe, having worked in Europe, the UK, there's more older people than there are younger people. And obviously in Africa, we have a bigger younger population than we have older people. That's what I can put it down to. And of course, that has its own benefits in terms of economics.
Yes.
Countries are more viable with a younger population than they are with a much, much older population. But having said that, my experience, which I found negative and which kind of challenged some of the stereotypes that we have, obviously, of all positivity about the elderly. The only negative thing that I've experienced is obviously coming back and doing voluntary work at Ingutsheni, which is the referral hospital in Bulawayo. It's a national referral hospital for mental health, and quite local to me where I grew up, Eluveve. There's also an old people's home. Was kind of the number of old people who were there, and the staff there would tell us that these people have no relatives. These people have been abandoned by their families. That was shocking, to me, because when we were growing up, there was always somebody to look after Coco.
Thank you.
And Coco, they'll do the rounds, like they'll visit
community.
This son, or even their own children. They'll visit this son, spend some time with them, move on to this daughter, whatever. But we seem to have lost that. Even if that wasn't your biological parent, your grandmother's sister is your grandmother, and you would look after them the way you would look after your grandmother. When I grew up, I had so many gogos, and I loved them all dearly. Things are changing. Things have changed.
Things are changing. Honestly, all the time these days, whenever we are having Christmas, my mother would say, you know what, Christmas have changed. Back then, it was like Christmas. People would be dancing and enjoying eating rice.
And bread with jam.
And those things back then, it was gold.
It was.
You would only eat them at Christmas.
Yeah.
So, do you think that things are changing for the better or for worse? From your own perspective.
My goodness. That's a really challenging question. It's a yes and a no. Some things have changed for the better. Others, no. They haven't.
It's changing.
But it's changing. And life has to change anyway.
There's nothing we can do about it.
There's nothing we can do about it. Some of the changes we just have to embrace. We just need to be a bit more discerning and make the right choices for ourselves and decide, well, this is good, this is bad. Okay, I'm going to embrace this one, but this one, no, I won't. Yeah, I think it's going to be down to personal choices.
So, I want to talk about rural development.
Yes.
There's been a lot of debate about rural life, especially in Africa.
Yes.
Do you think that there's going to come a time where the economy of rural is going to change? Like, instead of people in the rural areas depending on those people in the cities, people in the cities would actually come in the rural areas and, get stuff, buy stuff. Do you think that there's going to come such a time?
Yes, I think so. But I would also like to take you back to a time before you were born.
Yes.
I remember in the 70s and early 80s, having these conversations, probably with my peers. And there used to be, we used to laugh about it, but looking back, this was a fact that teachers and nurses who worked in the rural areas had more money than teachers and nurses who worked in town. I mean, those were the professions of the day. You were either going to be a teacher or you're going to be a nurse. And the smart ones always chose to be posted in the rural areas because they believed they could save money.
Really?
Yes.
Because life in the rural areas is cheap.
It's cheaper. So there was always that. And people, you know, and we would consider these things, you know, as teenagers that, you know, okay, would you go and work in a village clinic? Would you go and teach in a village school? Yeah. And they always had like a nice home in town and a nice home in the village as well.
Yeah.
And they always had a car as well. The car, a Datsun 120Y. Have you ever seen one of those?
No.
120Y, yeah. So,
Okay.
could be. But then I think came a time when rural life was then frowned upon. And I remember when we were at school, certain students were described as SRBs.
What is
Do you know what an SRB is?
A strong rural background.
Yes.
You know, my wife always tell me that you have SRB.
An SRB.
Most of the time, because I grew up in Chino, a small town in Mashonaland West. Most of the time she'll say you have SRB.
Yeah.
Back then, when people were telling me that I have SRB, I would get angry.
Yeah.
But these days, when someone says strong rural background, I say, I'm proud of that.
Exactly. That's why things have changed. And I remember there was a post, Carl Joshua Ncube posted something about SRB, and it made me laugh so much because I thought back in the day you will never, I think it was somebody wearing a t-shirt about being an SRB, and I'm thinking now we are wearing SRB with pride, whereas before it was something to be ashamed of. No one wanted to be described as an SRB.
I grew up at a prison camp back in Chinoy. So it was not that cool place.
No.
So at school, when they ask me, where do you stay? I would lie.
Yeah, you mention somewhere else.
But right now, I'm making a documentary about where I come from.
Yes.
And I always laugh about it. Like, you know, God works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely. And I think also going to the diaspora, it certainly opens up your mind. It changes your attitudes. Your mindset is changed. So maybe that's something good that comes out of going out there. You appreciate what we have back home and the life we had.
I want to talk about people who are coming back from the diaspora. They are investing a lot in the rural areas. Why is that so? From your own perspective.
There's a number of reasons. One, there's a recognition and understanding of where the wealth lies as well. We're getting to understand. You know, it's all back to farming and people accepting that, you know, not everyone has access to a 400, 500 hectare farm. But we can all start Kumusha, Ekaya. We can, there's so much more we can do. And we see examples of people who are doing it in their own villages, uplifting the lives of those people in their villages. I mean, you know, people are building amazing homesteads. They're starting amazing businesses. And who are they employing?
The local people.
The local people. And that's how it should be. So they are driving the local economy. People, I just want to get away from city life because, you know, you spend 20, 24 years in the diaspora. It's all city life. And it kind of, the novelty wears off after a while. And also for me, personally, I started to realize, even long before I came over, that people who live in villages, you know, overseas, are considered well-to-do and posh.
I've
learned
in
the village.
I now know. I thought,
you know, So if you live in a city on the outskirts, close to a village, you can conveniently say you live in such and such a village. Yes.
What's your advice to? What do you think young people should do in Africa to improve their lives from your own perspective?
Right. Maybe we need to, before I answer that fully, we need to take a step back.
Yes.
Because yes, years and years ago, conventional, traditional education was seen as the way out of poverty.
Thank you for mentioning that.
For a lot of African people, during the colonial times,
Yes.
Both my parents were teachers.
Okay.
And they were seen as the lucky ones that got the education.
Yes.
That had certificates, as
Yes.
everyone call it. I've got a certificate.
Yes.
So that hasn't changed much. We still believe very much in that piece of paper, despite the evidence otherwise.
Now.
I'm not saying you don't need a piece of paper. We need doctors.
Yes.
We still need the accountants. We need lawyers. But not everyone can be a doctor,
Yes.
an accountant, or whatever. But now, we have a lot of people who are gifted
Yes.
in so many ways.
Yes.
And we need to embrace and encourage those talents.
Wow.
And it goes back to how, when a kid is struggling, I'll even give an example of myself.
Yes.
I always struggled with maths.
Please don't mention it. Myself, I'm telling you, people will be surprised how many times I've wrote maths.
Yeah.
Hey guys, 81% of you are watching my content and not subscribing. We want to change that. Please kindly subscribe. It really helps this channel a lot. And make sure to comment and like.
I've never written a maths exam in my life.
Really?
And I don't think it's ever gotten in the way of what I want to do.
That's what I've told myself now. That's what I've told myself. Like, I've
It's
tried.
never gotten in the way.
I've tried everything, math. But for me, it's not my thing.
No.
But I thought about it. What you're saying is very important here. People think that when you fail education, you failed life.
Yes, but that's not.
But things are changing.
Things are changing. There's opportunities for absolutely everyone who's got a bit of determination, who's got
Yes.
a bit of talent in a particular,
Yes.
area, even if it's not academic.
Yes.
I'm not saying that people should not focus on academics, but not everyone
Yes.
is an academic. We should all excel
Yes.
in an area of strength, rather than trying to focus on something that is a bit of a pain. It's okay now as an adult.
Yes.
I understand what I want, and then if I think it's going to be painful, I might put myself through that. For example, today you were teaching me how to edit a video. That was
Yes.
very painful.
Yes.
But I wanted to learn how to
Yes.
how to do it. So I put myself through that pain.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It came from me. No one was saying,
Yes.
now you've got to learn how to edit videos. Otherwise, your career as a farmer
Yeah.
is going to come to an end.
Is it true that when you are starting a venture in farming, if it's capital intensive, the returns are good?
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
And I remember during COVID times,
Yes.
we started teaching during COVID because people then were seriously looking into starting something new, different opportunities, new opportunities,
Okay.
simply because of the nature of COVID lockdown.
Yes.
But no one was stopping anyone from being out there and working in their garden. Everyone was growing something in their back garden. And I'll give you an example. Seedlings. I don't think that the seedling business,
Yes.
when you start, is that expensive. I don't think it's capital intensive when you start, but it can give you a decent,
Exactly.
return. Obviously, when you start to really scale and commercialize, yes, it can be. But I think not all businesses that are capital intensive have necessarily got the best returns, or those with the lower startup, have, lower returns. It just it just depends on how you manage the finances at the end of the day, because you could pour money into something and still and actually come out in debt. You know, so number one is how you manage the investment.
Okay.
Number two, no, it doesn't always mean that something with high input will necessarily give you the highest yield in profits.
Okay.
It's all about managing the venture.
My last question: why you could have chosen to stay in the city in Bulawayo?
Yes.
But you chose the outskirts. You chose this farm life, this rural life. Why?
Okay. I didn't always live on the farm. No, I lived in town because of, obviously, my biggest reason for being in town was childcare responsibilities. My children were at school and I needed to be in town. But I chose to come and live at the farm so that I can be more hands-on, and I can definitely see a change. Things happen, you know. Okay, they don't always happen maybe at the speed at which I want them to happen, but it's easier to monitor progress or lack of it than when you are not there. And but having said that, when a business or venture has got systems, it should be able to run without you as well.
Farming, do you think it's applicable to farming, what you just said?
Yes, it can be applicable to farming. You can put systems in place, but I'll always say, you know, understand your venture, understand what you are doing, implement the systems, or get people who know what they are doing,
even
maybe
if
to
you're not
run, even if you are not there, because once a business cannot grow or function without you as well, it's also a sign that there is a problem somewhere. Where is the perpetuity in that?
That's a good point. I never thought of it, because most of the time, yes, people say farming, you have to be there.
Yes,
but
you have to be in the beginning, definitely.
Yeah, in the beginning.
In the beginning, you've got to be there.